he is not trying to resolve the contradictions. He is not trying to expose one view against the other. That will be rather mundane empiricism. What he is doing in this book is to look at a series of contradictions and hold them together in the same page. This particular method of doing history is absolutely interesting, very interesting. I would have called it, what I would call it, that he looks at these contradictions in a dialectical fashion. That means not by saying ye wrong hai, ye expose ho gaya, that's crude polemicism. What he tries to do is to hold these contradictions, I'll talk about this very briefly, hold these contradictions and allow them to evolve, or let's say develop over time. Unfolding of these contradictions. So what he means by Adivasi politics is precisely this, the historical unfolding of these sets of contradictions. There are many others. It is manifest in the way the colonial state itself had not. So neither can I truly, in some sense, give you a long and a very really a critical review of this book. All I want to point out is that in many ways my own research has been in the same area where he did. I was born in that area in Chotanagpur. I grew up in that area where exactly his focus of research is, in Kolhan. And as it happened, I also studied at JNU, where he studied in the same Center for Historical Studies. And as it happened, I was also his PhD examiner. So in more than one way, I feel connected to his work, to him, and to many. So what I'm trying to do, I had in fact a long, very interesting talk yesterday I had to give at JNU, which was nicely interrupted and nicely, it was a nice, but I'll try and summarize some of the things and make it. First I want to look at what exactly holds this book. I think Mr. Gill has already told you, and it is about a small region within Jharkhand. Its focus is there on a region which is called Kolhan, which actually became a government estate. That means government was the landlord of that region. That is the region in which you have one of the most densest sal forests in the world, perhaps, in the Saranda forest, which much later also was one of the areas in which the Maoist insurgency was there. But here, Umar's point is to look at this particular community. The people who live there are Hos, an aggregate tribe of the similar to the Mundas, but it has specific histories. It has specific, and it is about the Hos and a particular system of governance introduced by the British, which is called, you can call it an administrative exceptional governance system, which as they try to say, that it was to use to create institutions which existed earlier, but to integrate it into the administrative structure, institution of the headman and of the clan leader. So called the Munda monkey system. Now, the point about the book is, I would like to try to say that the book tries to show in three different ways, or if I have to look at the book, in three different ways, in how, number one, what is the structure of that region, and what kind of holds it as a unity to understand it as a unit of exploration. Second, how have historians and other commentators, or say, let's say, how have they looked at it, and what is there in the mind of Umar. So what he was trying to do, I think, and I read the thing carefully and examined it, and I still think it's an outstanding book, because I would say, what holds the book together, or what is central to the book's argument, is a particular series of contradictions. And he is not trying to resolve the contradictions. He is not trying to expose one view against the other. That will be rather mundane empiricism. What he is doing in this book is to look at a series of contradictions and hold them together in the same page. This particular method of doing history is absolutely interesting, very interesting. I would have called it, what I would call it, that he looks at these contradictions in a dialectical fashion. That means not by saying ye wrong hai, ye expose ho gaya, that's crude polemicism. What he tries to do is to hold these contradictions, I'll talk about this very briefly, hold these contradictions and allow them to evolve, or let's say develop over time. That's the beauty of the way he does it. Now, what is the one central contradiction throughout is of class and community. Now, what he shows that how this tension continues to, so there is no homogeneous community, that he shows very well. But the point is, even with the rise of internal elites within through the administrative structure, the community still persists. Okay, so it is the tension between class formation from inside and the existence of the community. That tension animates the book. That is the one central tension of the book. The other tension or the other contradiction in the book is between this exceptionalism, administrative exceptionalism, and a integrationism. On the one hand, they want to make it an exception, the type of governance, colonial governance, as an indirect rule, not direct rule. But on the other hand, they deeply integrate the existing or the created structure of governance, internal structure of governance, into the colonial state. So this tension continues throughout in the book. It is manifest not only in the internal development of within the community, the way a kind of class of collaborating elite leadership emerges and reproduces. This is throughout reproduced. That alongside also the emergence of a more integrationist and interventionist state. So it is on the one hand saying, you are exceptional, but on the other hand you are so there he uses the term paternalism as a way in which this centripetal and centrifugal forces are put together. Alright, now the third set of contradictions which I think animates the book is about the political constitution of the community itself. So there is a contradictory force in which the political community is being created. And these forces are, as I told you, on the one hand the force of class formation and what you call community formation, and then you have administrative exceptionalism and integrationism, and here the politics enters this through time, through historical unfolding of these contradictions. So what he means by Adivasi politics is precisely this, the historical unfolding of these sets of contradictions. There are many others. It is manifest in the way the colonial state itself had not one voice, often had 2 or 3 voices, and there were policy contradictions, there was contradiction within the community, and so on and so forth. But the key point about the political constitution is that these tensions are reconfigured over time. And that's the beauty of the way he has developed the book. And I think it's an interesting. So what he does simultaneously is to look at the historiography. How does he do it? Look at the colonial chaps who wrote about it, the colonial officials, those who tried to write the history of this region, and contradictions which were there inherent in those writings. Then colonial anthropology, which played a major role. Then the brilliant analysis of D.N. Majumdar, the Indian anthropologist who studied that region in the Horse. He shows again not a contradiction between colonial anthropology versus nationalist anthropology, but within the nationalist anthropologies a shift which takes place. Alright, the shift which takes place and contradictions which come about there. The methodological point he makes, and this is important for all of us to understand, that he is not merely dishing anyone, then saying, well, this is wrong and I am right. No, he plays the two forces or two opposing views all the time, bounces them together, introduces temporal development, and that constitutes the, historically, methodologically, I think it's a wonderful breakthrough that he has done. That is my reading of his book. I want to now end by looking at something, or the last part I want to talk about is what kind of political, as I said, political contradiction and political constitution of the region and the community that I have talked about. But what kind of political conclusion is not merely dishing anyone, then saying, well, this is wrong and I am right. No, he plays the two forces or two opposing views all the time, bounces them together, introduces temporal development, and that constitutes the, historically, methodologically, I think it's a wonderful breakthrough that he has done. That is my reading of his book. I want to now end by looking at something, or the last part I want to talk about is what kind of political, as I said, political contradiction and political constitution of the region and the community that I have talked about. But what kind of political conclusions can be drawn? That's very important. What conclusions can be drawn? And here I think Nandini did write a beautiful epilogue to this, and she is much more clear about it. But I can now rightfully say in some ways how is the most important political conclusion of this book evolves through its own unfolding. Not by saying, look, ये message है, ये किताब का message ये है. It's not like a pamphlet that this is what it is. It allows the reader to jump over or take it imaginatively and draw its political. He is not drawing everything for you. It is for us to find the political conclusion. The center point he showed is this, that the book itself, as I said, book itself is politically constituted. The region itself is politically constituted. Politics means the structure of power which is enfolding this community, both externally and internally. It is also the historiographic, the politics of historiography which is being constituted, and he shows that. And finally, the shifts over time, initially starting as a region to be pacified because it was a threat to administrative, basically the administrative communication networks, because it was connecting Calcutta to Bombay through this region. And then secondarily in revenue collection, which was very, very minimal, it was not at all congruent with it. And third is the gradual takeover of the key resources of that region by the government, which is the forests first. Forests were first protected, then they were turned into reserves, and finally, by the end of the 19th century and early 20th century, the entry of the big capital in the form of resource extraction. Singhbum is the largest and most important storehouse of fine grade iron ore, and the big mines all begin roughly from this period onward. There's still a series of mines like iron ore, manganese, kaolin, uranium later in the other parts, and copper. So there are a whole range of resources. Now what makes me interesting is this, that the framework, the contradictory framework that he created in the book, just one minute, the contradictory framework that he created in the book allows, despite the contradiction, for capital to enter. That's the most perfect example of saying, look, ये नहीं कि state उसको हाथ पकड़ के ले आया. It was through this emergence of this contrary or tension-ridden framework that capital enters and sharply transforms the community now. Now, throughout the struggle between the so-called indigenous communities and capital is the center point of the struggle. And state is now being to show how the colonial state created the framework, how the post-colonial state allowed and in some sense in the name of development displaced this work of the tribals, and finally in today's time all over from Chhattisgarh down to Koraput, all that region in the eastern India and central India are undergoing this. That is the conclusion that I would like to say. Look at this conclusion not as simple war like he showed, or it is a complexly historically produced contradiction which is now playing out in the struggle between indigenous communities, so-called indigenous communities, and the let me, I could have drawn, I just want to end like I ended last time with a little poem to Umar. It's Umar's birthday. He has given us a great gift in the shape of the book. What gift can we give him? So I was thinking of this, and I want to just read out this poem, a little poem. Give me just 1 minute, ma'am.
नेशनल दस्तक की आपसे गुजारिश है कि अगर इसको बचाना चाहते हैं तो नेशनल दस्तक को सब्सक्राइब करने के लिए रेड कलर के सब्सक्राइब बटन को दबाएं, फिर बेल आइकन की घंटी दबाएं। नेशनल दस्तक को बचाने के लिए बहुत जरूरी है कि हर खबर को शेयर करें, लाइक करें, कमेंट जरूर करें।